Alrighty, I think we're set up here. Need to pull up the chat bar. There we go. Yeah, let me know if you can see and hear me okay. Using a new mic. Well, not a new. I'm cycling through microphones. The audio issues never seem to go away, but hopefully this one sounds okay. J. Scott McLean says I'm good to go. Manda Joe says I'm good to go. So sweet. I love it when everything works together. Yeah, hopefully everyone's doing well. We'll get started here in a few minutes. Thanks for joining me and taking time out of your day to join the crew and look at some geology, talk about some things. We got photos to share. We got some merch to give away, which will be fun. And we'll hopefully just have a good time. Hour and a half, 2 at the most, kind of what I'm planning on, or just we'll just see what transpires. So let's give a couple shout outs while we're waiting for everyone to file in. We have my good friend Elaine down in Tucson. We have Joanne in Virginia who makes excellent hats. She knitted a hat for me that I still wear. Thank you, Joanne. Hope you're well. Heike in North Germany. Thank you. Let's see who else we've got. J. Scott McLean is always my 5x5 guy that lets me know everything's working. Appreciate you coming in. Sandrine from France is here. Excellent. Polson, Montana, Charlie Mitchell, thanks for joining us. A couple other folks coming in. Let's see. Ma Bodhi from Italy. We actually have a little bit of Italy news that we'll share towards the end. I don't have a ton of information on it, but I want to share something that's going on there, geologic, today and over the last few days. It's pretty significant and fun. So I'll throw that in with our Iceland and Kilauea updates, if that sounds good. It's cold in Kingsgate, Washington, says J. Scott McLean. Yeah, cold here in Twin Falls. I'll give you a quick weather report. We've had a couple weeks of fog and inversion, which has been really kind of dreary. The good news is the fog and inversion is gone. The sun is out, but it's still pretty chilly. But it's supposed to warm up this week. I think by the weekend it might be 50 or so Fahrenheit, which is pretty sweet. So I will be outside rock climbing again after a few weeks of having to go to the climbing gym after everything, all the foggy weather that we had over the past few weeks. Let's see. Great. Hillary from Cambridge, England. Thanks for joining us. Richard West from Orange, Virginia. Wonder if you got some snow. Snyderman is in Phoenix. Probably not snowing there. Dayton, Ohio. Peter Wine. I think that's right. JMS is in Boulder, Colorado. N1 Bug is in snowy Maine. I wish we had some snow. This has been maybe the least snowy winter in Twin Falls, Idaho in the 20 years I've been here. I think everyone in the West is really pretty, a little tentative about how this might turn out with our snowpack and the water we need. But let's see. Alien Bass from the UK is here. We got Richard Reisenberger from Vienna, Austria. Beautiful country, beautiful city. Sandy with her first live chat from icy North Carolina. Welcome, Sandy. I hope you enjoy spending time with us today. Good morning from New Zealand, says Leslie Harrison. Thank you for joining us. Lars Edblom from the high coast of Sweden. City 66661 from Utah. Awesome. Christian, you're welcome. Whatever email responses I sent you, don't remember those exactly, but I try to answer all my emails as best I can. Cilindro Puntiaceous from the interstate near Yuma on the way to Obsidian Butte near the Algodones Dunes. Yes. And coming on the St. George field trips. Excellent. This perfect time of year to be down in the desert southwest of North America. Viper Twin from North Dakota. San Luis Obispo, SLO Mouse, beautiful part of the California coast. Austin, Texas. Greetings from Savannah. Might be better just to give the city shout outs. Some of the user handles are hard for me to figure out. It's like reading a license plate, right? You're always trying to figure out what that license plate, like, okay, this is a vanity plate and it's some acronym or it's short for something, but sometimes you just can't fill it out or figure it out. Excuse me. Paris, Sandpoint, Idaho. Joachim in Norway. Beautiful country also. My wife's family's from Norway. I guess my wife's a quarter Norwegian. Yeah, Western Massachusetts. More folks coming in, but it looks like the top of the hour. So again, thank you all for being here. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being part of our awesome geo-learning community. Want to give a special shout out before we get going too far to our great moderators, Amanda Jo, who just does all the amazing things for me. She is the MVP for sure. And a close second is Susan, who I know will be on the live chat soon as well to help moderate if she's not already there. She's running a little bit behind, but she should be there to help Amanda Jo out. So if you want to submit a question for the end of the live stream, make sure you follow whatever prompts they give you in the live chat, and then Amanda Jo will aggregate those, send those to me, and then we can try to answer as many as we can. Today, you're just stuck with me. I know we've done a few of these over the past few months where we had guests like Mike Poland from the USGS, really smart folks, but you're stuck with me today. So hopefully that's not too bad. First of all, welcome to a new year, 2026. I'm excited. I hope you are. I'm excited for another year of learning, for experiencing, especially geology, getting to some new places, taking people and just learning with you, seeing what the Earth has to offer up in this new calendar year. Really excited about what we might see and learn together this coming year. So you can kind of see the rough itinerary there. We'll do some quick announcements here in a second. I want to share a few photos with you from my recent trip to Hawaii, where I led, I think, 9 viewers from our team around the island for a week. We'll do the giveaways. The giveaways is some merchandise we're going to give away. This kind of piggybacks onto last month's live stream where we announced we were going to do the giveaway. We left that window of time open where people could register and sign up. So if you missed that, don't worry, we'll try to do another one at the end of the year, but this follows up from the December year-end live stream where we just want to give thanks to our community members. We'll do some updates. I've got some information for you on Iceland and Kilauea, along with this other event that popped up today in Italy on the island of Sicily. Thank you for Amanda Jo for bringing that to my attention. And then we'll end with some viewer questions and answers. So thank you all for everything you do here. So first, just some announcements here. Let me get to my web page. So the web page that Amanda Jo's put together, this is the place to go if you want to keep tabs on what's going on. She's got it organized. It's slick. It's awesome. It's all there for you. So there's ways to donate here. So you can donate to the cause if you'd like to here. You can also go in under any video description. There's links there as well. And now we have our new memberships on YouTube, which is another way you can help support what we're doing here on the channel. But I want to mainly focus on the field trips that we have coming up. So if you're in the Western North American region sometime soon, or you can get here, you want to come out to this area. We have the field trips in February around St. George, Utah and southwestern Utah near Zion National Park. Those are mostly filled. I think this Friday trip might have like literally one spot available. So those are pretty much filled. But right on the heels of that are these 2 field trips I have in March on the 20th and 21st. These are in an area a few hours to the east of St. George, right near the Utah-Arizona border between the towns of Kanab and Page. Beautiful, like classic red rock country, layered sedimentary rocks. There's sections where it's folded. It's right near Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. So it's equally fantastic scenery to what you might see around St. George. There's big towns there with hotels. You should be able to find accommodation if you want to camp, if you want to get an Airbnb, if you want to stay at a hotel. Should be options there, but we have room in both of these field trips. So if you are interested in those field trips, you can click on those, read more about where we're going to go, what we're going to see, and then reserve your spot. In May, early May, I have 3 different day field trips right here around Twin Falls, Idaho. So May 1st, we're going to go out to Craters of the Moon, which is this young volcanic landscape in southern Idaho. Pretty awesome. May 2nd, we go out to City of Rocks, where these big pinnacles of granite and other rocks sort of stick out of the high desert area there. And then May 3rd, we explore areas closer to Twin Falls and look at the interaction between lava and water, eruptions that took place in the not-so-distant past, how the Snake River and groundwater affected those eruptions. And then the other one we have scheduled right now, this is a 4-day field trip, kind of a traveling caravan field trip. I did this last fall, so we're running it back. This is September 25th to 28th. This is the Chasing the Yellowstone Hotspot field trip. And so there's information on there for that one as well, if you're interested in that. I will add a July field trip in central Idaho, probably around Stanley. I just don't have the dates for you yet because I put in my river permit applications into the lottery this weekend, and I should know in mid-February if anyone in our group got a river permit. So that'll kind of dictate those dates. So basically in a month or so, look for some other dates in the summer to open up as well. Of course, I always do each year, not only field trips to Hawaii, I do one to Iceland each year, and I do one to the Grand Canyon, a river trip through the Grand Canyon. The ones for this coming year, those are booked, but if you wanted to get on either the waiting list for the next year or just the interested list, you can email us here at the website. Come down to the bottom here, and she's got an email link there. And you can send that to Amanda Jo and get it on the list, and then we can try to get you in the rotation as best we can. So anyway, so those are the field trips that we have coming up. And so now what I'll do is go ahead and share with you the the trip we just took to the Big Island of Hawaii over early January. And so I had 9 YouTube viewers sign up for the field trip. Basically, everyone flew on their own. They were kind of on their own for food. And I just kind of put together the lodging, the transportation, provided all the geology materials and interpretation and such. Maybe some of the folks that were on that trip are watching, not sure. But I just wanted to show you a little bit of what we were able to see there. So just if you could indulge me for maybe 10 minutes or so, I'll just run you through a fun little slideshow of the Big Island of Hawaii, one of my favorite places on Earth. So I like to start the trip in Hawaii, which is the Big Island is made out of 5 just coalescing volcanoes. And we start with the oldest one, the most extinct one, which is in the Pololu Valley. This is Kohala. And so we did a hike down to this beach here in the Pololu Valley. These big, really steep cliffs you can see here off into the distance. This is a section of the volcano that's actually slumped and moved out to sea. So there was a large landslide or collapse here sometime in the past. You can see the more gentle profile coming off the summit of Kohala up here. So we did a hike down there, looked at the rocks, looked at the geology, just a nice place to kind of start off. So there we are down at the beach, kind of having lunch, talking geology. Here we are at the overlook, kind of getting everyone ready for the hike down. Here's a picture of the trail. It's a little muddy and there's roots in places. It drops about 400 feet or so. So what, 120, 130 meters over maybe half a mile, something like that, to get you down to the beach. The next day, we spent that day looking at Kohala. The next day was a little rainy, and it had basically stymied our plan to go up to Mauna Kea that afternoon. But luckily, we were able to get that part of the trip in later at the end of the week. But we were able to go to some of the eruptive products and fantastic geology associated with Hualalai, which is another volcano near Kona. This is still considered an active volcano. It last erupted in around 1800 to 1801. So here's the group. We go to this really cool roofed over section of this lava channel where you can see some really amazing and intricate drip features. So here's these just extraordinary drip features like you can see here. You can also see in places, I know I did a video on these really cool xenoliths. So these chunks of green here are actually pieces of the Earth's mantle, these ultramafic rocks high in iron, high in magnesium that were brought up by the magma during the eruption. Pretty rare to see those kinds of rocks carried up to the surface. And so it suggests that maybe the magma ascent rates were very rapid during that eruptive phase. But there's a real cool little place right off the highway there where you can see some of these. So that's some of our stops near Hualalai. With Mauna Kea kind of snowed in for the day, and that part of the day kind of in the pits, we went down to Pu'uahonua Ohonaunau. This is a cultural site, really cool, but it's right along the coast and a place where the ancient Hawaiians had built structures, and it was a kind of a religious and spiritual place for them. So we learned a little bit about the culture down there. The next day, we left the Kona area, went and did a snorkeling trip in Kealakekua Bay. So there's some of the marine wildlife we saw in the waters. There's the crew at the front of the boat. Those who wanted to were able to snorkel around in Kealakekua Bay. Beautiful coral reef, all the cool fish you would expect to see. There's also some cool geology there. It's actually another one of these headscarps or cliff faces where there was a big collapse, a big landslide on that part of the island. And this is all coming off of, I can't remember if it's I think it is Mauna Loa. Yeah, Mauna Loa rocks there. From there, we went down to the Greensand Beach. Getting out to the Greensand Beach involves jumping in the back of a truck with a local who drives us out the 2.5 miles out to the beach. And here's a little bit what the beach looks like. So there's the green sand, which is totally made out of the mineral olivine. And so there's a little close up there. And thanks to all the folks in the group who shared their photos. I didn't have time to put all the photo credits in there of each person, but this is sort of an aggregate of some of the photos that we were able to use there. Yeah, so great times at the Greensand Beach. It's a really interesting spot. There's only two green sand beaches in the world. I think one's in Guam, the other one's here on the Big Island. So not just the color, but even the geology here is really interesting. This was a locally explosive event. It's what we call a littoral explosion or cone formed by the lava interacting with the seawater and becoming explosive there. That's why it fragmented into these beds of tuff you can see here in the background. And because it already had big olivine crystals in it, as the ocean and the wave action breaks down those tuff beds, it separates out those olivine crystals. And then because they're quite dense and heavy, they get concentrated here on the beach. So really cool place, one of my favorite places on the island. We then made our way up to Kilauea. And so this was early January. So this was this was before episode 40, but after episode 39. So we were kind of in between, but we were really close to, and we did get to see some of the initial phases of the episode 40 eruption. So you can see the two vents there, degassing. Here we're out near, I think we're out near the overlook area on the south side of the caldera. Mauna Loa is kind of back here, hidden in the clouds a little bit in the background. So we explored the summit area the first day. These are some pieces of reticulite that had fallen on the ground, this real foamy, frothy, exceptionally lightweight type of rock. Here's some beds of an eruption in, what was the year? 1790, a more explosive phase of Kilauea's history. And so this is the Ke'enekaukohe ash beds preserved in a little road cut there. And here we have the sulfur deposits along some of the fault scarps and the cracks and the fissures in the ground on the north side of the Kilauea caldera. Another view here, I just did a video, and some of you might have seen along the Helena Pali Road. This is one of the big fault scarps here from Kilauea kind of collapsing and slowly moving towards the sea as it's unsupported. This is where we found a lot of these cool pieces of reticulite on the ground. Next day up at the summit was very cloudy, but actually was a cool kind of view of just all the steam and gas coming off the caldera floor. So that was kind of a neat way to start the day. And then we were able to meet this awesome person here on the right. This is Katie Mulliken from the USGS. So she agreed to come out and talk to our group for an hour or so about what the USGS does, how they, the volcano monitoring efforts they do, kind of what it's like from her perspective and her job. So always appreciate her time. From there we went, started down the Chain of Craters Road, stopped at Mauna Ulu, which had an eruption between 1969 to 1974. There's some fantastic fissures and features out there, including these tree molds, places where the trees were sitting during the eruption, and then the lava kind of wrapped up around the tree trunks. The trees burn out, but they sometimes leave impressions of the bark or pieces of charcoal on the inside of the tree mold there. So lots of just cool volcanic features. Same place here. This is the eruptive fissure, or part of the eruptive fissure. You can see the big spatter ramparts here in the background, where the ejected lava that was thrown into the air just fell on the ground and built up to form these ridges of lava here around the folks. So another cool spot there. Then we drove down Chain of Craters Road down to the coastline, which is always cool. These are all, I think these are few 100-year-old flows from Kilauea. You can see some of these coming off the steep escarpment here. This is called the Pali. So this is another one of these basically big fault scarps here. Really cool place just to see the ocean at work and how strong the ocean is at kind of pounding into these cliffs, which are, periodically there's collapses here and such. Really cool photo in the top right here of a unique type of lava called entrail pahoehoe. Notice it kind of looks like these sinuous tubes and almost looks like, intestinal guts or something like that. Couple more photos from the coastline here with the sea arch. We went out to the petroglyph site there, which is pretty cool at Pu'uloa. Just some of the cool topography out here with these pahoehoe flows, some of the native plants that grow along the coastal area. So that was that day. The next day, we went down to the lower East Rift Zone and had access with a resident to go out and access the eruptive sites in Leilani Estate. So everything we're standing in there, prior to 2018, this whole landscape here was a neighborhood with big mature trees and houses. And then, of course, the 2018 historic eruption just wiped out a section of that neighborhood. This is Fissure 24 behind us there, and the big spatter ramparts that have built up around this fissure. But the big main attraction here is going out to Fissure 8. So if you know anything about the 2018 eruption at the Lower East Rift Zone in Hawaii, the Fissure 8 was the main eruptive vent for weeks and weeks. This thing was pumping out a huge, hot river of lava that went all the way down to the coastline and wiped out homes, took out roadways. I mean, this was the most impressive volcano on the planet in 2018 for a good number of months, and maybe the whole year, depending on what other volcanoes were active there. So you can see the cone built up there. This is the view from the top, standing on the rim of Fissure 8, looking down into the vent area, and then the lava exited out. There's kind of a channel that goes around the corner here, and then you can see further the lava river that kind of just covered the landscape out here. Really cool spot. Then we drove around to places near the coast where that same lava coming from Fissure 8 made its way to the sea, and you can see these huge rivers of lava, these channels that are left behind on the landscape. Just really neat stuff. Just an impressive landscape, even, 8 years or so after the fact. We were able to get back to the summit in the evening and see, again, the early stages of episode 40. What was kind of funny is because Kilauea has been doing these huge 1,000-foot lava fountaining eruptions, which are incredibly amazing and somewhat rare. I mean, we've had 41 of them in about a year's time, but these just aren't often the way Kilauea behaves. So what was kind of ironic was, had we been looking at these little spatters and lava dome fountainings any other time, I think people would have been pretty ecstatic just to see that. But because we've had these huge main event fountaining episodes, this was sort of like, the precursory activity, the JV game before the varsity game, if you will. But we were all able to see that. This came near the end of our trip. And then the last day of our trip, we heading back to Kona for people to take flights out. The weather was good, and we were able to get up onto Mauna Kea, which is always a real delight, the tallest mountain on the planet, if you measure it from its base to its summit. These are some of the cinder cones here up near the summit region. There was some snow on the ground, so that's always kind of a cool thing to do, is touch snow or play with snow when you're in Hawaii. Kind of a rarity, and sometimes people are astounded to know that Hawaii actually gets snow. So we spent some time up there, and then the rest of us went down to the airport, flew home, but 3 intrepid folks stayed for a few days, and they got to see the main event. So they were there on the day that episode 40 went off, and they got to see the lava fountaining and everything associated with that. So a really cool trip, one I do every year in usually January, between semesters, kind of between New Year's and when I have to come back here to the college. So if you're interested in that for next year, 2027, throw an email to Amanda Joe. We'll get you on the list, and we'll see how that goes. So thanks for indulging me for a few minutes with the Hawaii trip little slideshow. Hopefully that was neither too fast nor too slow. Okay, let's give away some stuff. So Amanda Joe has got this all put together, and we have a cool way of doing this. So I'm excited to be the wheel spinner. So what we have here, for everyone that went to the website since our live stream in December and signed up to be a part of the merchandise giveaway, we have all your names over here on this very colorful wheel. And then on the right here, we have 15 different merch items that we're going to give away. And so what I get to do here, and this will be fun for me, is we'll get to spin both wheels, and then we'll see which name it lands on and which item it lands on, and we'll be able to give away these 15 items. So I think it's kind of fun, kind of game showy. Obviously, if you're one of these people on the wheel to the left, you're kind of excited. If you're not there, maybe you can just be excited for them, root for them. We'll try to do something like this next year as well at the end of the year. If you remember last year, we did some ill-conceived by me, like a quiz on different, numbers. How many viewers did we pick up during the year? How many subscribers? And people were in the live chat putting in their answers. And poor Amanda, Joe, and Susan had to try to scroll through all the submissions in the live chat and find the winners there. It was well-intentioned, but poorly designed by me. And so Amanda Joe, who's very much into efficiency and doing things the right way, came up with this as a better way to do it. So let's go ahead and get right to it here. So I think I can just click on each one of these. I might pull up the little kind of cheat sheet thing over here just so I can see what I'm doing. I think we can just try it this way. So that one's spinning. That one's spinning. You're getting dizzy. And it looks like our first winner is Patrick Gaffney, has just won a field set bundle. Woohoo! So now what I need to do is remember what Amanda Joe told me to do. I got to go to my email. Sorry, real quick here. I remembered everything but this part. Okay, once you spin, I'll just have to do this once. Sorry, team. Not hit close or remove. Close leaves the winner name. So remove. Okay, so after that, we hit remove. Where did remove go? Okay, so there's Patrick and his field set bundle. But what we want to do is take his name off the list so he can't win twice. So one winner per item. So maybe Amanda Joe, if you could send me a quick message on, yeah, there you go. Tell me exactly what to push here, because I had this all figured out. Oh, I already closed it out. So he's already off there. No, he's still on the thing. So how do I get rid of? Oh, okay. I see what I need to do. So I need to go to here and then take his name out that way. Okay. All right. So that worked. Okay. So let's spin the wheels again. Okay. Here we go. Item number 2. Oh, and then we need to do it for. I need to take out the thing he won. So he won the field set bundle, and so we need to take that out too. All right. So we reduced the list by 1 person and the items by 1. I think I got that right. She says hit shuffle. Okay. So then it just shuffles everything through. And then spin all the wheels. That sounds right. And let's see who our second winner is. Dun, 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 dun. Game show theme music. Oh, Peter Booth has just won a beanie. Excellent. So I think now the way to do it is hit remove, and then it takes, it takes Peter and the hoodie off the list, right? Yep. Good deal. So now we can go to our third winner, so I don't have to make this too long. Hopefully this is working for everyone. Is this fun? Is this exciting? Okay. And it's keeping track of all the winners right here. So that's pretty sweet. Okay, so let's spin the wheel again. Spin, spin, spin. Our third winner is Thomas Gaffney, who also won a field set bundle. Excellent. Okay. I want to put remove or remove all instances. I think I just want to do this one because there's more than one iteration of that. Move. Okay. 1, 2, 3. All right, I think we're doing this right. Amanda Jo will tell me if I'm doing it wrong. Because we have, there's our 3 winners. It's keeping track of our winners, and it's removing the names as we go, right? Yes. Okay. I'm fairly convinced it's working well. Okay, spin all the wheels. Our 4th winner. I should have got some game show music to play in the background. Our 3rd winner is Annette Kologi, who just won a vintage hoodie. Congratulations, Annette. There's some fireworks going off for you. Excellent. Yeah, there's no rocks in the prizes. Shipping a rock is very expensive. Okay, so we'll go on to our next one here. I think we're getting the hang of this, so this might pick up the pace a bit here. Our next winner is Dan Pfeiffer, who won a field set bundle. Congratulations, Dan. Well done. Thanks for entering. All right, on to our next one. And Elizabeth B. Fierro, you have just won a zip-up hoodie. Okay, I could get into this with a game show voice. That would be fun. All right. Congratulations, Elizabeth. Well deserved. Let's go ahead and spin the wheel again. Eventually, we'll get down to 1 prize and fewer names. And the winner is... Ooh, that one just barely got on the line. Thomas Ford, you have won a Flip water bottle. Congratulations. Awesome. All right. Some of you, I can tell, are still on pins and needles. Will the colorful wheel end on my name? Let us see. Our new winner is Liz Wynn, has just won a water bottle. Congratulations, Liz. All right. And then our next spin here. Hopefully you're not getting too dizzy there. It's a travel mug. And the winner is Robert Kaiser. Excellent. You have just won a travel mug. So now you got to fill your mug and go travel. That's the requirement. All right, we're down to 6 prizes. Our last 6 prizes here, folks. This is fun. I think I could be a game show host. I would enjoy that. A tote bag. Won by Michael Rubin. Tote bag. There you go. Excellent stuff. Who doesn't love free stuff, right? Everyone loves free stuff. Try to get some swag for as many of you as we can. All right, we're down to 5 prizes. Looks like it's another vintage hoodie. And the winner is Laurel Pfeiffer. You have just won a vintage hoodie. Excellent. Okay, 4 prizes to go, 4 winners to go. Round and round we go. Feels like Twister or something. Another vintage hoodie goes to Amanda Beadle. Congrats, Amanda. Wear it with pride. I do. The vintage hoodies are very comfortable. Like, of all the merch we have, the shirts are comfy too, but the vintage hoodie is really comfy. I know other people would back me up on that. Okay, we have 3 prizes left, 2 t-shirts and a sweatshirt, it looks like. And our first t-shirt is going to Chris O'Connor. you have just won any t-shirt. Well, any t-shirt in our merchandise store. But we got the random road cut logos, if you like that one. I'm wearing one right now. We've got different designs, different colors. So knock yourself out. Enjoy. All right, 2 to go, friends. Blue and red, blue and red. What piece of apparel will it be? It looks like it's going to be a sweatshirt. And the winner is Kelly Fortier. Kelly, you have won a unisex sweatshirt. Kelly, I think you're on my Iceland trip, so I expect to see that sweatshirt make an appearance at some point on the trip. That will be a requirement. And then our final winner will win a t-shirt. And let's see who that winner is. Dun, 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 dun. The winner is Gary Pasco. You have just won any t-shirt on the Willsey Geology website. Awesome. All right, so there's all the results. I'm going to, I don't know, Amanda Jo, how do I get this to you? What's the best way to do this? Maybe I will copy all that and find a place to paste it over here on my other screen. The main thing I want to do here is not screw this up and have her be unhappy in any way towards me. Not that she's not a pleasant person, because she's awesome. Okay, so I have now copy and pasted all the winners. Hopefully, does that work, Amanda Jo? Is that what you needed? Oh, she already has it. Of course she does. She's like one step ahead of me. All right, that was kind of fun. Did you guys enjoy that? Yeah, so we gave away some stuff. If you didn't win, please look for us to do this again next year. I appreciate you all from jumping on. It was just a fun way for us to give back to our community a little bit with some of the merchandise and such, and just let you know we appreciate you. We appreciate all of you. You guys are awesome. You're the one that keeps me doing what I'm doing, kind of keeps the whole thing humming along. So thank you, all of you, for your support, and congrats to those who won some things. Okay, let's get back to some science. Woohoo! Science is good. Let's do a couple of updates here and on some current events, and then I will turn it over to you guys for any questions that you have that I can hopefully answer. Okay, so let's start with Iceland. I know Kilauea has been getting so much of the attention lately that people are like, hey, what about Iceland? Of course, as you well know, we are expecting another event sometime soon. Here's our view out onto the row of craters. This was from earlier. It's dark right now, so I thought I'd go back a little bit just to give you a little look-see as to what it looks like currently. So there's our current view of the craters there. But let's go ahead and check out the latest update from the Met Office. There was one that came out last Tuesday on the 20th. And what can we say here? There's a continued increased likelihood of an eruption. More magma is moving into the subsurface storage zone. The inflation is continuing, and we are just waiting. We don't know what the tipping point is. We don't know how much more magma and how much more pressure can be sustained in that subsurface zone before it either works its way to the surface and we get another eruption, or possibly it works its way laterally underground into some new space, probably accompanied by a lot of earthquakes, and we get an intrusion. Or maybe we get a little bit of both, like we did back on April 1st. Okay, so the big points here from the Met Office update, we have about 20 million cubic meters of magma that's accumulated since our last eruption in July. Earthquakes are low. I'll look at that again. And then I thought this was an interesting point here that they added, that since November 2023, so since this whole eruptive sequence basically has begun, looking at the Svartsengi station in particular, we have total uplift of just under 1 meter. So the ground is literally higher at that station by about 1 meter or 3 feet versus before all of this began. So you can kind of see the trend here, and we'll get to the GPS data in a second. But going back to November 2023, all through 2024, 2025, and just a little smidge here of 2026. But you can see each one of these movements of the GPS station upwards as the ground was inflated by the magma in the subsurface. Then each deflation event is the eruption. So all the red lines, the vertical red lines, are eruptions. The blue lines are intrusions. So you can see we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 eruptions at this location. But you can also see they came with pretty, the regularity was much tighter. They were more frequent on a shorter time scale early on, and then since then they've just gotten a little bit longer. So this is the biggest span of time since the previous eruption. I guess we're looking at 6, maybe almost 7 months. And so it's a pretty short Met Office update that we have there. Looking at the earthquakes in the area, not much to report. The area where we expect the eruption to be is quiet over the last 24 hours. We've got one good size magnitude 3 in the offshore area where that divergent boundary kind of comes over to the peninsula. And then just sort of the typical earthquakes we see, over here near Lake Klevervat. This is over near the Hengil system up towards Thingvellir. So kind of typical pattern that we see on an active plate boundary. If there's hopefully one thing you've learned from me, it's not to live and die by each earthquake. Don't read into each earthquake too much. Looking at, if we can pull up the last week of earthquake activity, you can see again, it's pretty benign. There's not a lot going on. We got some of those offshore quakes. Around Grindavik, it looks like there's only been 3 very tiny quakes around magnitude 0.5. So just nothing really going on there. And then the typical kind of background noise we see over here in the Krishuvik system. So not a lot going on there. I even pulled up the last month, and it's again pretty slow. Okay, nothing at all right now in the data would suggest that anything's going to happen anytime soon. But as we've seen before, these things can escalate pretty quickly. We can go from background levels of earthquakes to a short flurry over 30 minutes, an hour, that leads to some more significant event. Looking at the GPS data, I had these all loaded up and now they're sluggish. Looking at the GPS data, got to go in here and get rid of some of the mess here for you real quick. Got all these. Got the lava fields. Okay, so you can see if we go to, we can pick the Svartsengi station perhaps. Let's get everything in English, which helps me. And then if we look at the last year, this is probably a good place to see sort of the trend of where everything's going. So here's going back to February of 2025, leading up to that April 1st event, the eruption and the intrusion, then leading up again to the July 1st eruption. And now you can see the trend over the past 6 or 7 months. And you can see that the rate of inflation, the uplift of the GPS station, not nearly as steep as what we saw with some of these other ones here. It actually kind of more resembles what we see over here. But you can also sort of see that it looks like it's flattening a little bit. Like it doesn't look like it's moving any higher over the last few days. So that suggests possibly, I mean, one interpretation is it's the crust there is stretched as much as it can, and it's not going to take much more to break it. So that's one possible interpretation. But we know we've seen these things kind of ebb and flow before where it might actually increase a little bit more. So hard to say for sure, but you can see we're a good, let's see, maybe 100 millimeters, so 10 centimeters greater inflation now versus the threshold that was needed for that July 1st event. So that's kind of interesting there that it's moved up that much. The INSAR data also kind of jives with what we see going on. Let's see, where's my INSAR data? Back a little bit here. It jives pretty well with the inflation signal we're seeing there. So there's a nice INSAR image there using the TerraSAR satellite. So this would show every color swath, so like from purple to purple or blue to blue, is 1.5 centimeters of uplifts. We're looking at about that, maybe a little bit more than that from December 12th to January 14th during that time period. Same one there. This one just covers a little bit different area off to the east. So the INSAR data is tracking there as well. So that's kind of all I have for you with Iceland. It's a wait and see game. It's checking the earthquakes. When you see the next time you see a flurry of earthquakes, and a flurry for me would be 5 to 10 earthquakes in half an hour, especially in that area near the power plant in Grindavik, that would be significant. That would possibly indicate that the magma is on the move. We don't know if it's coming up. We don't know if it's going laterally, but that would be the thing to look for next. The GPS data is probably going to continue to track upwards movement. The INSAR data is going to show that. But the thing to watch next, in addition to the webcams, I suppose, would be the earthquakes. But it could be tomorrow. It could be in 2 weeks. It could be in 2 months. Might go further. Just no guarantees with how this might pan out. Okay, so that's our Iceland update. Let's do a quick little update on Kilauea. So here is what we have currently at the summit at Kilauea. I did an update after this last episode, episode 41, but just to kind of catch you up on what's been going on since. So there's the north vent on the right, the south vent on the left, actively degassing. If we scroll back to the nighttime, let's see if we can see anything. Let's go back to like, no, this might not take us all the way back to, yeah, that's still nighttime. But you can see a few orange spots there. That's portions of the crater floor. There's some glow there. So there is some glow from those vents. So the magma's not too far down those conduits. But some of the glow you're seeing here on the crater floor, these little orange spots here and there, that's just parts of the lava field cooling, crusting over. Also some places where it might be breaking out. The magma is still molten just below the lava is still molten just below the surface. So it's still moving a little bit, slumping, sliding on that topography. And so it's still a bit in motion. So there's our V3 camera view. If we look over at V1, the current view there is a little bit less exciting. What you're mainly seeing there is some of those gases drifting to the northeast. So it looks like, based on what I'm seeing here, is the winds, the trade winds are not strong today. There's kind of like not a lot of wind at all, and that's why we're seeing so much of this, these volcanic gases up near the crater. So there's probably a pretty decent VOG alert around the crater area based on just the amount of degassing from these vents and just the weak winds that usually blow this stuff off in the opposite direction. They did come out with a new update this morning, USGS, as of 8:50 Hawaii time. Summit observations, the episode 41 fountaining stopped on the 24th. I think that was after about 8 to 9 hours or so of fountains. Some of those fountains went up to about 500 meters or about 1,600 feet. So I haven't heard the USGS say this, but I believe this could be the highest fountains yet. I believe episode 41 might have just eked out the highest fountaining crown from episode 38. Don't have official confirmation of that, but they both were very close. They did have a very weak seismic swarm about yesterday after 3 o'clock that continued for about 2 hours, but they were very small earthquakes. The largest was magnitude 1. So we're still getting those earthquakes up near the crater area, but so far, based on what we saw with episode 41, those earthquakes aren't having an effect on the magma plumbing system. One thing we might look for is if we get bigger earthquakes or higher numbers of earthquakes, that could affect the fractures, the cracks, the places where the magma sits in the subsurface, and that could start feeding the magma into other parts of the volcanic system. But so far, we haven't really seen that, despite a few days ago when we had more seismic activity. So down to the analysis here. So based on episode 41 just ending a couple days ago, episode 42, which would be the next one, it's too early to call it. It's about 2 to 3 weeks away, and they need some more time and data in order for them to give you a forecast window. So they typically give us like a 4 to 5 day, sometimes a shorter 2 to 3 day window of when the next episode's likely to occur, but we need a couple more days of data in order to see and model that trajectory. Anyway, and then they do a recap of episode 41. I did mention the high fountains there up to about 500 meters or so. Both events were going off, which was pretty awesome. And I think they have in here, they did quantify the effusion rate of about 800 cubic meters per second. That's incredible. That is a monstrous amount of lava being jetted out of the ground every second. 1,000 cubic yards, if you like yards better. 800 cubic meters is just incredible. That was its peak. It averaged, the average is still pretty awesome, 360 cubic meters per second. And then the total volume of lava erupted from this last episode, 11 million cubic meters, and that covered about 80 to 85% of the crater floor. But the tilt is going on. One interesting thing, they've got a laundry list here of places that during episode 41 had tephra, whether it was ash-sized particles or larger pieces of reticulite or whatever, falling out of the sky. So that goes not just for the summit area, Volcano Village, but all the way down to Hilo. Notice Hilo's in the list, which is like 35 miles to the northeast, and down to also, I think they had the Pahoa area. Yeah, there it is, Pahoa. So pretty impressive that the high fountains combined with the basically non-existent winds during episode 41 allowed that tephra to fall over such a wide area. So a much bigger deal there. So pretty interesting stuff. Looking forward, here we have the tilt over the last year or more. So you can kind of see the last little spike down here. So there's episode 41 at the far right, and it's coming back up. I'll show you that here in a second. They do have a nice timeline here of all the eruptive episodes. I won't bore you with it, but they do have one column here with approximate maximum fountain height in meters. So remember, ours for this last one, episode 41, was around 500 meters, maybe 460, 480. Episode 35 was pretty close. That was one I was thinking of, the highest one. Episode 35 was 479 meters. So it was, I think it's going to be close as to which one of those is actually highest. They haven't added episode 41 yet to this table, but I'm sure they will sometime soon. So if not the highest fountains yet occurring, yes, a few days ago with episode 41, then right there in the ballpark. Couple little bits of monitoring data, and then we'll turn to your questions, friends. So you can see, let's go here, the earthquake counts. There's where I reported those higher spikes in earthquake activity, those seismic swarms we were getting in the middle of the month. Those have kind of tailed off, and now we're back to largely background earthquake levels over the past week or so. And then here's some of that. Let's go ahead and refresh this page. Might see a little bit more of the tilt meter. Well, not much more. But here is the tilt going up. Here's episode 40, and here's episode 41. And now you can see, so you can see how much further down that dropped the deflation signal was compared to episode 40. And then it makes sense that it erupted out of both vents for 8 to 9 hours and jetted stuff, 1,500 feet into the air because you were evacuating a large portion of the magma that was in the in that shallow storage chamber there. So now you can see that it's rising a little bit. We'll have to see where that goes over the next few days. That's why they want to let this inflation signal work itself out over the next few days, because it can ebb and flow a little bit, as you see up here, before they start making projections about where episode 42, when that might occur. Yeah, so I think we covered everything I had there with respect to the earthquakes, volcanoes in Hawaii and Iceland. Let me, one last thing here before I turn to your questions and such, folks. Let's, so there was an event that I guess began a few days ago, but I became aware of it today thanks to Amanda Joe. Was able to dig into a little bit of thinking about it and a little bit of research, but I don't know a whole lot about it undoubtedly some of you, especially in Europe, might have more accurate and better information than I do, but I'll share with you what I can. And that is that we had a pretty significant landslide event over on the island of Sicily, near this town, Nisimi. So on the island of Sicily, which is the kind of big island at the end of the boot of Italy, there's a pretty impressive landslide. And I want to show you parts of this video here because this really captures the whole thing. And then I'll give you some of my interpretation and such. But you can see the car dangling off this cliff edge here. So this is actually the headscarp. This is the place where the landslide detached from the ground and started sliding downhill to the left here. So we'll just let that kind of roll through. So you can see some of this. So you can see the height of the scarp there. So they've evacuated, I guess, like 1,000 people. They did have some heavy rains over the few days prior, so that likely played into it. You can see portions of the roadway have collapsed here. A lot of these buildings and homes right on the brink. I'll come back to some of this with my analysis here in a second. Pretty impressive. This is just wow. I don't know. I haven't heard about any fatalities or injuries, so I would guess then that they were able to get people out before the collapse occurred, but I don't know that for sure. If anyone has some definitive knowledge about this and wants to chime in on the live chat, that would be great, because I was just made aware of this today, so I haven't looked at this in a lot of detail. So some of the tension cracks here and secondary scarps down here on this, more like grazing, I guess, land, or we can see a roadway down here that's been broken. Yeah, just really impressive stuff there. So I'll let this play. It's about a 2-minute clip, just really impressive drone footage there. Looks to me like a pretty complicated slide. Now, again, I'm not seeing the whole thing because of, with the drone footage, I can't see everything, but it looks like it's probably what we call a rotational slide or a slump, where it's just moved downwards. You get a little bit of back tilting there. I've done some videos on some smaller versions of this in the past, but that is impressive. That is a very large slide feature. See the water from this aqueduct just pouring off the edge there. Really tightly packed homes and businesses there, a very densely populated area. I think I read somewhere it was like 26,000, something like that. So let me point out a couple things here with the few minutes I had to look at this thing, just give you my geologic 2 cents for what it's worth. So if we go back here, you can see what these homes are sitting on, what this city lies upon is some layered sediments here. This is not very consolidated. But down here, scoot through this a little bit, you can see this gray layer. So there's this grayer layer of sediments and these browner sediments sitting on top. And it looks like a little bit of what we might call an unconformity or erosional surface between those two. Again, I'm not there. I can't look at this stuff with my hands and feel it. So this is all armchair quarterbacking this whole scene from thousands of miles away. But this very likely could be clay, and these look more like sands and silts. Again, a little bit based on color, and also based on the way this thing's moved and the rain that fell. So rain on clay ends up being the clay swells. It's very prone to slope failures and such. And so, again, I don't know for sure. I'm sure they'll do a more in-depth geologic analysis. You can see it kind of down there. There's that layer. But I'm wondering if the rain fell, you have these impermeable surfaces, right? The asphalt and stuff. And so the water takes a while to work its way down, but it gets through the cracks in the sidewalks and the asphalt and whatever. The water could probably get through this sand and coarser sediment easier, but when it hits this clay layer down here, it can't move through that. Clay is essentially impermeable, so the water actually collects along that interface or that zone there, and then you can get collapse features occurring. Let me take you over real quick to this place using Google Earth, and give you some more information about it here because I was able to kind of look at Google Earth and figure out maybe a few things here. So let's zoom over to Sicily, head across the Atlantic. Here we are in the Mediterranean, and again, just so everyone's there's Italy right there, and this is the island of Sicily. Etna sits over here, active volcano. But this area here of interest is not too far away from the coast. But if we come in here closely and look at this city, it looks like the area that's collapsed, because I've kind of done some back and forth comparisons. And you can see this. I don't know if this is like what feature exactly this is here, but you can see this on some of the drone shots. So this section here, I think, is failed. And let me turn the view a little bit more obliquely so you can hopefully see the topography a little bit better. So I think it's mainly this section here that's failed. This road right here is the road that we saw collapsed on the video. So it cut right through kind of the edge of some of these homes. It did not cut through this. I don't know if this is like some sort of court or just a turnaround point or whatever this is. But this is still up on the rim, so this hasn't collapsed yet. But this is where this slump or slide took place. But as you look at this in a little more detail, you can see, it's a little hard to tell on Google Earth, but you can see down here it's flat, and the whole city sits up on this mesa, this kind of flat area that sits a good 700 feet, 220, 30 meters above some of this lower area down here. But if you start looking, I mean, and I'm no geomorphologist, but I think there are some other telltale signs that slides have occurred here. This area here looks very much like an older slide, even to the point where if you come back here, you can see a semi-arcuate headscarp. So I don't know how old this is, if it's hundreds of years or thousands of years, but it looks like there's been a failure right here. Notice that the land down here on the slide, this older slide, is kind of bumpy, lumpy. It's what we call hummocky topography. It even has some of these ponds on it, what we call sag ponds. So in these low places, the groundwater is just collecting. So the fact that these ponds are here, and again, I don't see any streams coming into these, so I'm assuming these are fed by groundwater for the most part. That suggests that we do have saturated conditions underneath this mesa to some degree, and so it's very likely. You start looking around this thing, you can start to see other places where it looks like we've had slope failures. Another one over here, look at this. You've got this ground here, it comes up, goes down, and then goes back up. This is probably a block of material that slid down to the left. Looks like there might be another one there. Again, I'm no landslide expert, but I can start to see several places. Here's another arcuate headscarp potentially here. Here's another slump block. Several places along this boundary here where this hazard has occurred. So the whole point of me saying that is it shouldn't come as a huge surprise what's happened there. It's still impressive. It's still dramatic. It's still tragic because we're looking at people's homes and such. But still, I still think there's some geologic conditions there that might help explain why this has taken place. So yeah, so for the folks in Italy, a terrible tragedy. Hopefully, again, lives were not lost. Property that can be, look at the excavator, like right on the edge there. Holy cow. And again, this this escarpment here is a good 25 meters, maybe 80 feet or so. Just really impressive. And I think the whole thing in terms of its width was about 4 kilometers based on some of the information Amanda Joe sent me. So yeah, someone there saying, Sandrine saying, no casualties. They evacuated the people ahead of time. So that's great. But just a reminder that no matter where you live, gravity never sleeps. And even on, these people lived on a flat surface. There were people that were closer to the edge, of course, but that doesn't completely eliminate the hazard there. So really impressive stuff. So thank you, Amanda Joe, for sending me that little tidbit there and some of that information. So Yeah, hopefully that was helpful. Okay, so now if you guys are still with me, a good hour into this, we'll do some question and answer. Take a quick drink. Amanda Joe has sent me the first batch of questions. They are now loading on my other screen. Thanks again for joining us. Okay. Oh, fun. I got some questions here. From Kandui7, Shawn, evidence in the Great Salt Lake Basin shows fast isostatic subsidence of hundreds of meters. Mid-Atlantic core samples at great depths show freshwater fossils. Fast isostasy from ice loss. Oh boy. I don't know if I know much about this. And I'm not sure I'm connecting all the dots in your question there. Great Salt Lake Basin shows fast isostatic subsidence. So subsidence, if you're wondering what the fun, fancy words here are, isostasy is just a fundamental principle that when you weight the Earth's crust, it subsides. So when the Great Salt Lake was bigger and we had a Lake Bonneville there, the weight of that immense water body actually depressed the Earth's crust and made it sit lower. And then when the lake drained out during the Bonneville flood and started to drop due to climate shifting, it actually rose again. Same thing happens in places where there were glaciers. When the glaciers were there, the weight of the ice causes the crust to subside or sink. And then when the ice is removed, maybe thousands of years later, it actually rebounds a little bit. So I don't know the connection you're trying to make there between the Great Salt Lake Basin, which was a freshwater lake, and mid-Atlantic core samples, that show freshwater fossils, which I don't know much about. So sorry I can't help you there. MC Wolfbeast wants to know, why is olivine green exactly? Is it a specific metal? Oh, good question. I don't know why it's green. And not olivine, I should be careful. Olivine is a group of minerals. So the olivine names actually is a name for a group of minerals. And then there's more specific ones like forsterite, phaelite. I don't think they're all green. Some are kind of a sherry or root beer color. They all, though, contain fundamentally iron, magnesium, silicon, and oxygen. But what imparts the green color to olivine, I don't know specifically. I don't think there's any metals in there other than the iron, as far as I remember. So really good question there. Wish I could help with that one. Snyderman411 would love to see Kilauea erupt. I could probably be there for 4 nights, but would need 3 weeks notice. Is there any way to predict an eruption in that time frame? Yeah, I've had a lot of people kind of reach out to me and ask similar sorts of questions like, hey, I want to see an eruption, but you can only be away for so long, and it's traveling, so it takes money. And so what's the best way to time it? I mean, the cool thing right now, and I don't know if this has ever really been the case, at least it hasn't been the case that often, is if you basically could time it right, you could be there for 2 weeks, which I know you said you can't, 4 days, 4 nights. If you could be there for 2 weeks, at this point with Kilauea's activity, you're almost, I'd put it like 85, 90%, almost guaranteed seeing an eruption if you could just spend 2 weeks on the island. Now, if you can book a trip and get there kind of on short notice, then you wouldn't necessarily have to be there for the 2 full weeks. The nice thing is it's been behaving somewhat predictably. The USGS can forecast these windows down to a few days. So I'd say right now it's too early. So obviously you want to maybe if you want to catch the next one, if you need 3 weeks notice, it's a tough one. You can only be there 4 nights. You need 3 weeks notice. I mean, I'd hate for you to, there's no guarantees here, right? If I or any geologist or anyone, a palm reader, like gave you their forecast for the next eruption and you missed it, like your 4 nights there did not coincide with an eruption, you had your 3 weeks notice, I would feel pretty awful about that. But there's a high chance that could be the case. I think it would just be kind of playing the game. The hard part here is not so much the 4 nights, it's the 3 weeks notice. 3 weeks notice, we're kind of like, as soon as one ends, we've got 2 to 3 weeks before the next one begins. And you've only got 4 days there. So I think if either you could spend more time on the island and or your notice time was shorter, I think we could drive the probability up a lot higher. But given those specific parameters, I don't feel very confident in giving a good sort of prediction or forecast or whatever. So, okay. MEH Coleman, hi. What I thought I learned at school was that magma erupted via volcanoes to form land, but learning about Iceland, I now realize that a lot of igneous rock might come from intrusions that never erupts. Is there an estimate for how much rock is eruptive versus intrusion? Yeah, great question there, and very true that we only look at the land from the surface, right? We are humans that live on the surface of the planet, and occasionally we see a cliff face or a canyon where we can see more of like the depth or the cross-section view. But you're seeing, I mean, even the ocean crust, if we're just looking at the ocean crust out in Hawaii, it's 10 kilometers thick, 6 miles. And most of it is probably made up of these intrusive events and intrusions. I have a number in my head, so I can't answer your question. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 50-50 or greater in terms of more rock from intrusive events versus extrusive events. It's just at the surface where we all are, we're going to see mostly the eruptive products, the magma that made its way to the surface. Yeah, really good questions. You guys are hitting me with some good ones here. I'd like to answer one, but I haven't been able to answer one, at least to my satisfaction. Ken Dewey 7, the entire western portion of North America is susceptible to volcanic activity, and that's their question. No, the entire western portion of North America is not susceptible to volcanic activity. A good chunk of it is. So if I had to draw, let's make this kind of fun here, and we'll just make this the U.S. for now. But I could do this for all of North America. Let me try this fun little pen tool thing that I've been playing with a little bit. So if I were to draw the areas of the western north, I think you're saying the North American western coastline or coastal regions. I hope that's the intent of your question. Certainly here, right? So there's the Cascades, that's volcanic. But then there's a gap, right? So you go through Central California, and for the most part, there's little to no volcanic activity chances, I suppose. And it's not until you get down here and then go down into Baja that you see, so this area is active volcanically, and this area is active volcanically. But everything in between, this zone here, this is where the San Andreas Fault is largely a strike slip fault, connects out here to the Juan de Fuca Plate. And so basically from the north end of the Salton Sea to here, there's no chance of volcanoes erupting here because there's no conditions or mechanisms that are generating magma currently. The plate boundary is mostly perfectly strike slip, or else it's a little bit compressional, but we don't see any volcanic activity in there. Just down here from Salton Sea down into the Gulf of California, and then from basically Mount Shasta north through the Cascade Range. Yeah, fun stuff there. Take those off. Yeah, good question. Hopefully I did okay on that one. Next question here. Edward Bredfield, 1680. There are vast examples of sandstone in southern Arizona. Is that from an ancient ocean? It depends. Some of it could be. I'm much better with northern Arizona, having gone to NAU, than southern Arizona, but there is a lot of sandstone down here. Some of this was marine, so depending on the age of the sandstone, certainly the further back in geologic time you go, if you're talking about like the Paleozoic era, Cambrian, Devonian, it's likely to be related to marine sandstones, like coastal sandstones from an ocean. But if you're looking at more recent ones, by then Arizona was pretty for the most part, landlocked away from the ocean. And you could get sandstones from rivers, you can get sandstones from sand dunes, wind-blown deposits. So there's other environments in which to deposit sandstone. So it kind of depends on the age. And if you can figure out if you're whatever local sandstone you're thinking of there in southern Arizona, if you can figure out the name of it, the geologic name, like the Tucson sandstone or the Guadalupe sandstone or whatever the name is, you could probably do a quick Google search, find out how old it is, look up its depositional environment, and then figure it. And there'll be some information there to let you know if it's coastal or not. Good question. Okay, one more here on this page, and then we'll see if there's some others. This was a submitted question via email from Kevin in Wisconsin. I love your knowledgeable, fun videos. Thank you. If possible, will you share your thoughts on early Earth, specifically the Hadean period? I always hear the Earth at the end of the accretion period was completely magma/lava, no solid surface, just a big ball of lava. Is this still the current theory? If so, what proof is there? And if so, what was the cause of all that heat? Excluding the Theia impact theory, were all rocky planets the same in that sense? I guess I'm not convinced of the molten Earth theory. Again, I'm no expert on this, but the heat, kind of going to that question, Earth's early heat came from two main sources. The impacts, not only were we hit by a large, another planet, or what we call planetesimal, that we think was a glancing blow, spun off a bunch of debris, gouged the Earth, and that material accreted to form our moon. That's the general hypothesis on that, based on analysis of the moon rocks and some other evidence. Our moon is really large compared to a lot of other planets. So heat from the impacts, and then heat from the radioactive decay of all that, the uranium and other elements inside the Earth's core. So accretionary heat as the planet came together, as it amalgamated, impacts, heat from impacts, and then the radiogenic heat. Those are the generally accepted sources of heat. So the Earth was really hot early in its infancy. We don't have any rocks from the actual beginning phases of the Earth because we think it was still molten. And of course, later on, rocks get recycled, the whole rock cycle thing, rocks get remelted, and that. So yeah, Kevin, it sounds like you want a nice deep 20-minute, 30-minute presentation on that. You might look up, I think GeoGirl just had someone, maybe it wasn't about the Hadean though. You might check YouTube and there might be some nice videos on that in a little bit more detail. So sorry, I don't have a little bit more on that. Okay, so that was my first page of questions. If there's a second one, Amanda Jo, you can go ahead and send it. Otherwise, I'll just kind of look in the live chat. Kandui7, what is the interpretation of Long Valley Caldera's hotspot? I don't know if the Long Valley Caldera, which sits over here in California, near Mammoth Mountain, kind of up here, this area. In fact, you can kind of see the outline of it, the crude outline of it right here. I've never heard it referred to as a hotspot. I think its magmas were related to late subduction, but I'm not 100% sure. So I've looked at some of the rocks from it. It's got some impressive features, but I don't know much about the origin of the magma and that part of the story. Good question, though. Let's see, scrolling back, seeing if anything pops up there. Here's one that didn't quite. Oh, let's see. Some L Chalafo, any rough estimates on how long these eruptive episodes would have to go on before filling the lower part of the crater? Okay, so that's back to Kilauea. I read some estimates on that. Sort of fill in the Kilauea caldera. I mean, we're looking at like it's years. I think it's even maybe decades before that whole area is filled in. So what the question I think is asking is, we have a large caldera here. Let me actually kind of show you that. So here's the caldera rim shown in orange. And then we have a smaller crater, the Halemaumau crater within the greater caldera. To fill the caldera in, I mean, that's going to take, you'd need to erupt lava for maybe centuries in order to fill that in. That's an immense void. To fill in the Halemaumau crater, which is much smaller, I think the estimates were still in the years range, like tens of years. Obviously, it depends on how much lava you're erupting and what rate, but I think the premise was at the current state of these last 40 or 41 episodes, if it kind of kept doing that at that rate every 2 to 3 weeks, it would still take like some number of years or maybe even decades, which was pretty incredible. Okay, last page of questions here, or second one. And let's just do these two and maybe wrap it up there. Thanks for all your questions too, friends. Hope you're enjoying this. Appreciate your support. Come on, computer. There we go. Okay. Okay, I got the first one there. About the Kilauea one. So I'm glad I picked that one out. Lampus Staxis, lamp as Texas one. Curious how far away from the current episode could a new vent open up the recent quake swarms at Kilauea? How far away from so how far away, like geographically? Well, for now, there's nothing to suggest we're going to get a new vent opening up anywhere except this area. Now, remember, we did have, so our two vents are kind of down here. We did have one episode, and I can't remember the number of it, which number it was, but we did have another fissure and vent open up, some 100 meters or a couple 100 meters away down here with one of the other eruptive episodes. But for the most part, those two vents, which kind of sit here, have been the conduits, the pathways for the magma to take to get to the surface for well over a year now. So how far away could a new vent open up? Well, there's a lot of possibilities to that. You could get a vent opening up anywhere in the summit area, but in order for those things to happen, we'd need to see earthquakes and movement of the magma away from this plumbing system, right? So you'd have to somehow divert the magma into a different pathway that's more efficient for the magma. But possible places it could go are the East Rift Zone. So anywhere kind of out along this orange line. Here's where our 2018 eruption was, down here along the coast. You can actually see the East Rift Zone continues out underwater. It's way out to here, under thousands of feet of water. So it's a big feature. You can see some of the cones, these little rounded features. There's a really nice cone submerged out there in the water, but it's on the East Rift Zone. You can see some of these craters right here on the East Rift Zone. So in terms of just what areas, I mean, if I just take your question at face value, how far away from the current episode could a new vent open up? Well, if we just stay on land, I guess the furthest away it would be out here at the tip of the East Rift Zone, which is about 32 miles or 51 kilometers. And if it were to erupt somewhere down the Southwest Rift Zone, how far away would that maybe go? Southwest Rift Zone's kind of weird. It maybe goes out to here-ish. But yeah, like a similar, looks like about a little less, 30 kilometers or 19 miles, something like that. So yeah, just some thoughts there. So could go down the Southwest Rift Zone, which is over here, could go down into the East Rift Zone. But in order for those things to happen, again, we would see clear indications that the magma was traveling in that direction. Earthquakes would be, opening up those pathways, probably see some ground deformation. That would all precede the eruption. Okay, thanks for your question. Tyler Anderson, 9324. Why does the pressure in the magma chamber build until it fountains? Why, if there's an open conduit to the atmosphere, doesn't it just constantly leak? Well, good question, Tyler. So you're basically, it's the gases that provide, I mean, remember that this lava, this magma, it is rock. It is just liquid rock. It's rock that's hot enough that it's melted to some degree, but it is still dense, heavy stuff. So in order to get that stuff, not just to the surface, but thrown 500 meters into the sky, it takes a tremendous amount of built up pressure, and that pressure comes from the gases that are dissolved in the magma. So the idea here is, like, right now the eruption is taking place, and so the magma that's kind of sitting down in that vent, both those vents, is largely depleted of gases. It is gas poor. That's why it's not erupting anymore. It's probably not even cooling very much. We can see the glow at night. It's still molten, but it's lost a lot of its gases. So what we're waiting for over the next few weeks is more magma to come into that shallow system. This new magma that's coming from deeper is going to have a lot more dissolved gases in it. Those gases will occupy more space, and as they push that magma up towards the surface, eventually we'll see the dome fountaining like we usually see in the early stages of each eruption. That's the magma that was kind of already in the system being kind of pushed out. And then once we tap into that gas-rich magma, that fresh magma into the conduit, that's when it starts the fountaining. So that's why it's not constantly leaking, is the pressure and the weight of the older magma on the gas-rich magma is keeping it from erupting. But once we build up enough gas pressure behind that, it jets and it erupts at the surface. It's a lot similar to the way a geyser works. The geyser goes off, it blows hot water out of the ground, but then you wait until more hot water, which flashes to steam, so that's your gas there, eventually jets the hot water above it up into the sky. Hopefully that was helpful. Kandui 7, hasn't Arizona had recent activity 1,000-year plan? I don't know if you're referring to volcanic activity, earthquake activity, flood activity, landslide activity. If you're talking about volcanoes, Arizona has a few young volcanoes that are kind of on the order of 1,000-ish years. And I don't know the exact ages. Someone in the chat could probably correct me and look this up. But I think the most recent eruptions around in Arizona are north of Flagstaff. So you have Sunset Crater, which actually erupted when Native Americans lived there. They actually moved their pit houses out of the way. And then we also have this nice fresh one here, SP Crater, which I think is around a similar age, but again, don't quote me on that. So Carl Barros, is the Mammoth Caldera dead? No, I don't think that's the same one we were looking at in California, the Long Valley Caldera. I don't think it's dead. It is it's active enough that we have a whole section of the USGS, the Long Valley Observatory, that's watching that volcano, watching it with earthquakes, monitoring it. So I wouldn't say it's dead at all. It's not extinct. It is I guess you could call it dormant if you wanted to give it a label, or inactive. I like that word a little bit better, but potentially active. This could erupt again, and it shows enough signs, kind of like Yellowstone, where the ground can rise and fall, and there's hydrothermal features that might occur in places. You can see there's hot springs there. So I'd put it kind of like Yellowstone. Yellowstone hasn't had an eruption in 70,000 years. For some people, that means it's dead. But to geologists, we still see the potential for eruptive activity, and I would put Long Valley kind of in the same classification there. Stevie Pinhead, last question here. Shawn interpreted the question as relating to the West Coast. It did not extend his answer to areas like the Snake River Plain or Arizona, Utah, Colorado. Oh, regarding western portion of North America being susceptible to volcanic activity. Okay, so if you want to you want to go big picture and go beyond the West Coast. Oh, this will be fun. Then I get to use my little markers again. What's going to happen here? Places that could erupt in the next, places that are still volcanically active. So we covered the Cascades, right? Did that. Talked a little bit about this area down here. Then we have Yellowstone. Got that. You've got the Long Valley Caldera here. You've got portions of the Snake River Plain, the wake of that, including craters of the moon. You have this area along the eastern edge of the basin and range. So we have some very young, potentially volcanically active features here in the Black Rock Desert near in Utah, uh, where I'm going to take folks on the field trip here in February down towards St. George. Sort of like, I would actually draw this like, how would I draw this? Something like this. This is not very pretty. The stuff around Flagstaff, potentially, which we don't totally understand. Um, and then, I mean, there's stuff out in the Mojave, Amboy Crater. I mean, really anything in the basin and range in this swath here is a place where the crust is thinning. There's Lunar Crater out here in Nevada. There's places out here where we could get some sort of eruption. So that's kind of messy. And there's places in New Mexico with like the Valles Caldera. I didn't even think about like the Rio Grande Rift. So that's another area. Lots of places. You could really categorize a whole lot of places there where you could see some sort of eruptive activity. So, okay, how did we do there? Did I cover most of those? Hopefully. I got both the questions there. Any last minute things on the chat? Down to the updated part here. Is the eruption like a geyser? Storm bug. Is the eruption like a geyser, the gas building and the gases in magma or water fountain? Eruption like geysers. Yeah, the gases are the thing. It's the gases. The gases are what drive the eruption. So it depends on how hot your magma is, what its viscosity is, how much gas pressure you have, how much weight of that magma sitting over that is, and if you have enough gas pressure to overcome the pressure of the magma and the rocks and whatever else is sitting on top of it, then you will get an eruption, just like water. Once the steam pressure in the hydrothermal system overcomes the weight of the hot water above it, and then it's a bit of a self-perpetuating process, right? Because now once the fountaining initiates or the geyser starts erupting, gases are coming to the surface, but the rest of the material, as it rises, the gases expand. So those gases take more volume, they expand, and so you're able to blow even more stuff out and evacuate more magma or water out of the system during the eruption. And that's why, like, lava fountaining can last 8 to 9 hours, like we saw in Hawaii, or some geyser eruptions. You might watch Old Faithful erupt in Yellowstone for 5 or 6 minutes or something like that, depending on how much is stored there. So pretty cool stuff. Nice. Okay, Mandy Joe sent me a message. Oh, one more here. Joe Jordan, on your trip to Hawaii, you showed photos of hills that were once volcanoes that had slid into the sea. Is that what Etna will be reduced to? What sort of time period does that take? Photos of hills that were once volcanoes that slid into the sea. Well, they weren't actually volcanoes. They weren't like the summit areas. They were just the flanks of it. For Etna, let's see if we can get rid of all this here. Okay. Yeah, again, I'm not an expert on Etna. I don't think Etna's fate is like that. You have to remember that in Hawaii, we have these eruptions and these magma types that are a little different. So Etna is a legit stratovolcano. It is true that it's not buttressed well on its east flank here. So is it possible there could be a collapse off the east side? Maybe. I don't know if it's done that in the past. I wouldn't be surprised, but maybe it's okay. It's fine. I also don't know how old Etna is. But when you start looking at the Hawaiian Islands and Kilauea, you can start to see where a lot of these collapses have occurred, because we have this right here. So you can see, like, here's this classic one off the coast of Oahu here. Let me get set. Yeah, you can see all this debris that goes way out here. These are all parts of these big catastrophic collapses. They don't happen very often, so I wouldn't expect, is our lifetime going to coincide with some massive slope flank failure at Kilauea? Probably not. Like, it's 99.99999 keep going chance that you won't see anything like that. But they do occur occasionally in the geologic record. This is the Kohala. The Kohala one actually is a fun one to trace. So let me trace this one. This one kind of comes around like this, pours out like this. I don't know how far it goes out this way, but something like this. Yeah, so there's your Kohala break there. So some of these we think are fast and catastrophic. Others show signs of being slower in terms of the rate in which they move. So yeah, will Etna be reduced to this? I don't think so, because it's two very different types of systems. These are shield volcanoes in Hawaii. They're made out of very low viscosity lava flows. Etna, whoa, I need to do that. Etna is a stratovolcano. It has a different magma composition. It's steeper. It has more, I'd say in general, it has more structural strength to it. Etna sits mostly on an island that supports it. And unfortunately, we have volcanoes like Kilauea that are not supported on one side, and that's why they're kind of sliding into the sea. Same thing with this flank over here from Mauna Loa. That place I showed you where we went snorkeling, that was just this little bay here, but this was another small collapse over here. And then the first slide I showed you of Kohala at the Pololu Valley, that's this valley here. So that's part of this big collapse here. You can see the notch, right? That's the headscarp right there that all collapsed in. So, okay, good stuff. Yeah, I think we did some good work here. Hour and a half feels about right. Hope everyone enjoyed our live stream today. We covered a lot of ground. We did giveaways. We let you know about the field trips. So please, if you're interested in those field trips, go to the website, willseygeology.com. and see if those work for you. If you have questions, you can email us about the field trips. Happy to answer those, but we've got those set up pretty nicely. You click on one, there's some information, and you can check that out. They're kind of like just day trips, kind of like just the ones I take with my college students and such. We did the Iceland and Kilauea updates as well. And the little cool story, well, not cool in the losing property sense, but interesting geologic story and tragic situation in Sicily. So hopefully everyone enjoyed our time today. Thank you to our moderators, Susan and Amanda Jo, for their work on the live chat. Appreciate all you guys do. Yeah, make sure you like the live stream, support the channel as best you can. We appreciate that. And we'll see everyone next time. I try to do these live streams maybe once a month or so, once every 2 months at the most. So haven't got another one scheduled per se, but we'll do another one for sure if we get another eruption in Iceland sometime soon. And I'm able to coordinate that, especially with Johan and getting the drone up and getting you guys some good footage of that. We'll try to do that, of course. So yeah, hope everyone is well. Have a great 2026. Have a great day or evening or afternoon or whatever time it is there. Appreciate your support of the channel and our geo community here. And we'll see you next time, friends. Take care, be well, and so long.